everybody, this is Erica, the technology nerd, likes to film stuff, and this is the LG V30. Now this is a first look unit and not a final review unit, so I will hold off on my full review until I have one of those. But for now, let's take a look at some of what the LG V30 has to offer. First, specs. Let's talk about specs. We've got the Snapdragon 835 SoC, 4 GB of RAM, 64 GB of internal storage with an SD card slot. Then on the front, we have a 6-inch OLED full vision display with an 18:9 aspect. And it's got Quad HD Plus resolution. It looks really beautiful. We've got a 3,300 mAh battery inside of this. And yes, it is non-removable. But now we've got this glass back and we've gained wireless charging. And not only that, but this is now IP68 water resistance. I know people have been clamoring for this. We've also got a dual camera setup here on the back. We've got a 32-bit quad DAC. This is an impressive device that I know people are really going to love. So let's talk about the look and feel of this device, shall we? It feels really great in the hand, and it's also quite thin. And it's got this really nice subtle curve to the front and also the back glass, as you can see. So it just sits in and cradles in your hand really nicely. And what's also nice is that this has Gorilla Glass 5 on both the front and also on the back. And the glass camera lens is made out of Gorilla Glass 4, so this should be pretty sturdy. So now let's start looking at the back. We've got the fingerprint sensor in the right place. Thank you, LG, so much for doing that. You guys probably know what I'm referring to. Here is the Galaxy S8. So we have the fingerprint sensor where we can easily reach it. I'm also liking this redesign of the back here where this is looking less like a robot. Here we have the LG G6 and you can see that we've got a nice face here. It really reminds me of Mr. Bill. Oh no! So the placement here between the fingerprint sensor and the cameras isn't looking so much like a face anymore. I can still see it, but it's not as pronounced. So continuing on with looking at the front, we've got this dual camera setup here. This first camera is the 16 megapixel 71 degree f1.6 aperture. That is the wide aperture I've seen so far on a smartphone. And it's also got a glass lens. And it's also coupled with a laser assist autofocus and has optical image stabilization. And then we've got the second camera. This is the wide angle 120 degree camera at a fixed focus. So there's no autofocus and it doesn't have optical image stabilization either. So it's not like the setup of the Galaxy Note 8. But still, here is the wide camera setup that a lot of people have been wanting. Then taking a look at the sides of the phone, these are metal. They feel really, really nice. This is a very well-built phone. You can see at the top we've got the headphone jack, standard headphone jack. Yay, LG, they did not get rid of it. We've got a microphone. Then on the left-hand side, we've got our 2 volume buttons, and then it's nice and clean. Then on the right-hand side, we've got the SIM card tray, and also there's a place for the SD card as well. Then at the bottom, we've got a microphone, we've got a USB-C charging port, and a single bottom firing speaker. So this is not stereo, just so you know. It's got some nice heft to it, and it's just a really pretty looking phone. When you take a look at the LG V20 and the LG V10, this is completely different. A lot of people said that the LG V20 just really wasn't appealing, or it just didn't look very interesting and it didn't stand out. Now this is really going to stand out, as a lot of the phones these days look just this way. This is the new thing. So if your phone looks like this, chances are people are going to want to pick it up. There's this 6-inch screen on the front and it's a smaller form factor. The whole thing really is screen with just very small bezels at the top and at the bottom. So LG has really changed their design language. It's their most premium feeling phone yet, and probably the best design one. This is my favorite. It looks quite similar to the LG G6, except for it's more rounded. It feels nicer in the hand. I would say it doesn't look as tall and skinny. Even though we've got that 18:9 aspect, it just looks right. So I think the LG did a really good job with the design of this phone. I know that one thing that some people are going to be really sad about is the removal of the back cover, so you can no longer access the battery. A lot of road warriors would want to take a couple batteries on the go with them, and that's just not an option anymore. But we did gain water resistance as a result. So let's go ahead and dunk it in the water a little bit. I'm sure it's going to be just fine. So now you'll be able to take this and use that nice wide-angle camera under the water. So there are trade-offs. But for me, it's worth it because I don't usually trade out batteries anyway. Not with fast charging these days. Beautiful phone. Dunk it in water. No one asked you! And it's just fine. You see it's working. Everything works immediately, including the fingerprint sensor once you take it out of the water. Ah, and that's intelligent. When you take it out of the water, it says charging blocked due to moisture, so it detects that there is moisture in the USB-C charging port. Once that's dry, it should be just fine. Moving on to looking around the interface and just looking a little bit at the performance of this device. This is really very nice and smooth. LG has the smooth scrolling down on this device. I really hope that this nice and smooth performance will hold up over time, especially once we get retail units. But man, is this thing currently zippy and very responsive. Now, like I mentioned to you guys, this is a first look unit and not a retail model, so I don't want to make any definitive conclusions here. I just wanted to take a little bit of a look under the hood and see what gameplay looks like. So here we have Riptide GP2. And what I really like to do is use Game Bench just to see what the frame rates are like. Now, the Snapdragon 835 is known for having really good initial peak frame rate performance. And that can go for several minutes before thermal throttling kicks in. But what I'm seeing right now, just for the early behavior of this device, is that throttling seems to kick in immediately. You can see the frame rates oscillating there. Now, I know LG wants to make sure that this device does not overheat, so maybe that might have something to do with it. But again, this is a first look unit. Maybe by the time we get retail units, it'll do what the other 835s do, where you get that really great peak frame rate performance for several minutes before the thermal throttling kicks in. Otherwise, during several minutes of gameplay, it gets a little bit warm, but it's not that bad. Now, when looking at that frame rate performance, of course, I went underneath gaming to make sure that everything was optimal. So game graphics, you can see everything's at high resolution and high frame rate, so it's not that. Underneath developer settings, there was nothing that I could see either. It is pretty cool, though, during games that you can go ahead and swipe up from the bottom and you can hit Game Tools, and you have access to several settings, including taking a screenshot. You can scale your app. If you want it to be full screen, you can definitely do that if the app supports it. And right from here, you can adjust your game graphics as well. So even here, you can see I've had Riptide GP2 at full resolution and frame rates. And you've got another curious little setting called Take a Break. And it's hard to see here, but it looks like it says that the brightness and performance have been adjusted until I start playing the game again. If I push play, it's going to go right back up again. I don't leave games running. I'll usually just get out of the application for a minute, so that's curious. And it looks like underneath gaming settings, you have that very same setting called Break Time, where it's going to reduce the brightness and performance as well once you leave it for more than 5 minutes, so you can have it do it automatically. Now, looking a bit more at the interface, it looks a lot like the LG G6 in terms of LG's experience here. So we have a lot of similar settings and so forth, but one thing that I do not see with the LG G6, or do not feel with the LG G6, they're doing with their haptic feedback. It's really very nice. So around many parts of the interface, you feel varied types of vibrations. So just say you're holding down an application, it'll give you a nice ticked response. If you touch here on the floating bar, it goes "tididit." You can actually feel the vibration, and it really feels like the phone comes alive. It's very interactive. It's the same thing if you go underneath the camera. So as you zoom in, you can feel it going tick, 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 tick. So that feels really very neat. Even when you let it go, it goes thung. You can actually feel it go thung. So I love that. That's something that just really enhances the interface experience on this phone. Now, of course, if you don't like that, you can disable it. You can even control how much of a feedback that you get. So if you go underneath sound, there's vibration strength, and you see there is vibrate on tap. So if you turn this down all the way, you're not going to get any of that haptic feedback. I feel this really enhances the experience, so it's not something I'm going to disable. Usually I disable vibrations because I just don't like them, but on here, it's really nice. I haven't experienced this before. Now let's take a bit of a closer look at the floating bar features. You see you can turn it off and on. There's the bar right there. If you turn it off, you no longer see it. Turn it on, you see it. Turn it off, you get the idea. So you can put shortcuts on there, screen capture. You have your music player controls and quick contacts. So you can see all of my shortcuts. These are all of my things I can use for screen capture. This feels very Note-esque, but it shows that you can do these things without a pen. It's just not as precise. Go ahead and touch that one. And you can overlay some scribbles onto whatever background is in the background. And you can save it. Let's go ahead and put that inside Quick Memo. And then you've got extended capture. So it's going to capture this entire web page, and you can touch it to stop it. And then of course you can view what you just captured and you can draw on it. You can also just capture part of the screen if you'd like to. And all of these things you can save into Quick Memo or Gallery. So that's very handy to have, and a big reason why I would leave this bar on here. And then you've got a setting right here so you can make an animated GIF, just say over a YouTube video, hit record, then stop it, it'll save it for you. So that's quite handy. Then there's the media control and my quick contacts, and then back again to my shortcuts. So some pretty useful and cool settings. Okay, so let's talk about this gorgeous display a little bit. I personally haven't seen an OLED display on an LG device in quite some time, and this is just absolutely beautiful. It's 2880 by 1440, so it's Quad HD plus, and it's 6 inches diagonal. Now, of course, we have a setting for app scaling where you can go and choose which applications you want to be the full 18:9 aspect. Now, this doesn't work for everything. I don't see it working in Netflix or on Hulu or on YouTube, although some of those apps have their own little option to hit and make it full screen or to crop a bit. It's working very much like it does on the G6. We've got plenty of display settings, which I really appreciate. So look, you can even mess around with screen resolutions should you want to. So I have it at the native resolution, but you can go ahead and put it in pretty much 1080p. So that's very familiar. We can also mess around with the screen calibration should we want to. You've got normal and you've also got custom. So should you not like the color temperature, you can mess with that, make it cooler or warmer, mess with the RGB levels. That is always extremely appreciated. And then you've got some other modes here, best for movies, best for photos, best for web. Now I did some preliminary measurements, and from what I can see, none of these modes actually meet the sRGB calibration standard. Web is probably going to be the closest one in terms of the color gamut and the white point, but the saturations are not where they should be. Then you've got best for photos and movies, both which are wide gamut. There's just a little bit of differences in the way that the hues look. I just prefer the normal mode, which is a cooler white point and nicely oversaturated. I did have a chance to watch a little bit of shows on Netflix, and even dark scenes look lovely so far. So they did not horrifically mess up the grayscale, which is nice. And happily, this device right here happens to have a really nice screen uniformity. So I'm not seeing different color tones throughout the display, like bluish here and a little warmer here. So I hope that that is a consistent thing. Again, take everything I say right now with a grain of salt, though, because this is not a retail unit. This is a first look unit, but I couldn't help myself. Then let's not forget about the always on display setting. I would prefer to have the brighter display because it's kind of hard to see when there's a lot of ambient lighting. That's a lot easier. And we are missing that double screen, so a lot of people might miss those shortcuts, but actually all you have to do is swipe here, and there are all those shortcuts. So you can access the camera, take a memo, turn on your flashlight, so on and so forth. So that's all there still. And if you're more interested in conserving battery power, go ahead and turn off the brighter setting, and you can see that it's much harder to see. You can also control your content as well, various clock faces. If you want to have your signature like you could on previous V-series phones, there it is. So there you have it. Now before we wrap up this video, let's not forget about some camera features. What they offer here is pure delight for the person that really wants a lot of control over their pictures or their videos. You've got everything here, from saving in RAW to having a full awesome manual mode. You've got a couple of new things which are pretty neat. I'm not sure how much I would personally use them. But under mode, we've got this new setting called Cine Video. And one thing that I think is particularly cool is point and zoom. So basically, it's going to let you tap an area and then zoom. and it goes so very smoothly. It feels like using the zoom rocker on a video camera. They've done a good job implementing this. So let's keep the camera straight, and we'll point on the Galaxy S8 Plus there in the corner, and we'll start to zoom in. And you can see that it starts moving that way, specifically when you zoom. And of course, I'm getting that really nice haptic feedback. You can turn that off if you don't want it. No worries. Then also in this mode, you have the option to turn on various presets for color grading. So if you want to have a thriller mood or a classic mood or noir mood. So not only do we have color profiles for video, we also have them for the camera as well. It looks like they really just want you to learn how to use this camera, for example. You have all these awesome manual settings, and a lot of people might not know how to use those right away, but they want to make that simple for people instead of just using the simple point and shoot modes. So you've got what's called graphy. And what you've got here is essentially several pictures that are going to set all of your camera parameters to match what was required for this particular picture to be taken. So just this one, for example, these were the EXIF settings on this photo, and it imports them into the camera. So if you want to take a photo that looks similar to these in these environments, it's going to help you set those particular settings. So that's a really interesting idea. And of course, if you can't tell what it is you're looking at, just hold down for a moment and it's going to tell you a little bit more about this picture. Same thing there. My one advice to LG is to make these things easy to find. Right now, this was disabled by default. If you go underneath settings here, you can see it says graphy photos. So you need to make sure that that is on. So we'll see how people react to that. I think that that's pretty promising. Now, of course, you can easily switch between the two cameras, going between just the main lens and the wide-angle lens. There are just so many settings with this. It's a jam feature-packed. One last cool little tidbit underneath the camera is we've got the manual video mode, as we usually do. So you can switch between the main camera and the wide-angle camera. You've got control over your audio, gain, low-cut filter limiter, also your wind noise filter, everything that we've seen before. And of course, you have your manual settings. And underneath your settings, you can set your video resolution, the frame rate. I always love that you can choose a high bit rate. So I can choose a high bit rate for 4K videos. Really nice. You have your choice for hi-fi video recording. Another fun little thing is you've got covered lens as a setting, and it's going to let you know when your wide-angle lens has been covered. So all pretty useful stuff. And what's also nice is you've got save as LG Cinelog. So if you want to do color grading yourself, you've got a Cinelog mode. So awesome. This is very much the media creator's phone and multimedia viewer's phone. You've also got the quad DAC inside of this thing. It's pretty amazing, and it's just gorgeous as well. I think LG really hit it out of the park with this. Now for video and picture quality and all that, I will hold for the full review, as again, this is just a hands-on unit, but what I've seen so far is just dang impressive. Love it. So this is all that I want to show you guys for now. This has been Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to hit the notification bell on my channel page. That way you are notified of new videos that I come out with and further coverage of even this device. Let me know what you guys think of the LG V30. Are you excited? I definitely am. Would you pick this over the Galaxy Note 8, for example? It'll probably come down to price, really. So let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed the video, hope it was insightful, and have a good night. Bye!